Hi. In the last lesson, we looked at how to clone a system prompt. But what next? How can we modify the prompt to make it more useful for us? Firstly, we can add models and change parameters. Covered briefly in the last lesson, it is simple to add new models to your prompts. Firstly, take a new or cloned prompt, go to Models, scroll down and press Add Model. Select your model from the Model drop menu. Here you can see we have access to many of the Claudes. And with OpenRouter, the list goes on and on and on and on. So let's go with Claude 3 Haiku Beta. You can see here that the system has suggested a name for the model, but if you wanted to do something like change the parameters, you might put that this is a high temperature model. And then you can change your parameters: the temperature, top P, max tokens, frequency, and presence penalties. So as a primer, the temperature is how coherent or creative a model is. This is usually on a scale between 0 and 1, but some models allow higher values than that. The colder or closer to 0 the temperature is, the more statistical and less creative it is in its responses. This is good for if you want a model to accurately respond with facts instead of coming up with stuff. However, if you want more creative answers, you would want to raise the temperature and have it nearer to 1 or whatever the highest value is. So the top P is the threshold for which words are even in the running to be selected based on their combined likelihood. Again, this is a value between 0 and 1 and can be thought of as a percentage between 0 and 100 of the full knowledge of the model's brain. 0.9 is a good starting point. The weirdest words aren't picked, but there's still a good selection. Max tokens. If in doubt, 2048 is a good number to put here. Again, this differs based on models, so look up their max token output sizes on pages like OpenRouter, etc. Models like Claude 3 actually now have a context size of about 4,000 tokens in their output. So, things are starting to get a little more interesting in this realm. The frequency and presence penalties are two sides to a similar coin. The frequency penalty is for if you're experiencing repetitive output or the AI is looping words or phrases in the output. So the higher the number of your frequency penalty, the more you're discouraging the AI from repeating common words or phrases. Again, this differs between models. Some range from 0 to 2, where 0 is no penalty at all, whereas other models also go between 0 and 2, but 1 is the middle ground. So you can be either more or less repetitive than the standard. The presence penalty, on the other hand, is encouraging the model not to use words or tokens that appear already in its input. So it encourages the AI to not repeat your beats word for word. But on the other hand, it will also use less information from your codex and your world building, character details, so forth, since you're actively encouraging the model to ignore those details. So it's kind of like you want to test and see which way the model goes when using all your details. The second way to change prompts is through editing the prompt instructions. This is really simple. In the Instructions tab of your cloned prompt, you can edit the text as you please. Some simple prompt changes you may want to try out include changing the primer sentence to include the genre of the book you're writing. For example, horror or romance. And that's kind of like keying in the kind of words that the AI will then use. You may choose to add or remove rules in the system message to more clearly reflect your style of writing. So if you were doing like a Regency fiction, you may not want to have short, punchy sentences. Or you might, but whatever your style is, you can kind of give instructions so that the AI is following it. You can also change the number of words that you prompt the AI to write a scene beat of. So you can go to the very bottom. The system prompt has 400 words. However, you can change this to 1,000 or even more. Like, bear in mind that there is a context limit for the output, but you can always encourage the AI to write more. You can also add in examples for the AI to follow. So if you wanted to do the show don't tell principle, you could include an example of what showing and what telling is. A caveat, however, is that this works better for the larger context models like Claude and GPT and Gemini, but doesn't work so great for, say, Mistral 7B. Finally, for those who want super duper control, you can modify the programming a little bit. Think of function calls as placeholders that Novelcrafter then replaces with the actual content once you've called the AI. I'm going to give you a few to get started that you can add into your own prompts to pull up more details. Okay. Firstly, if you want to get the chapter summaries for your story prior to the chapter you're working on, then you want to use the story so far function call. This is already included in the system prompts and helps the AI kind of know what's happened in your story so far without having to read the entire thing. It's also why it's so important to keep your scene summaries up to date, as if you have any inaccurate information there, it can be called back on through this function prompt. If you want to take into account codex entries that are mentioned within the prompt, for example, if you have a beat and you have X characters named, then you want to use the context codex function call. To pull up a snippet as a reference, if you had a sample chapter of your writing style and you wanted Claude to use that to base its prose on, then you want to use the snippets.get and then snippet name function call. For the AI to read the words before, after, within a scene, for example, if you wanted to fill in or bridge a gap between two passages, then these are the function calls that you would want to use. And finally, if you want the AI to read words across previous scenes or chapters and not just the chapter that you're in, like if you did decide you wanted it to read your entire story, then the words before across scenes function call up here is what you want. You can see a list of all the available functions when you type in the open curly brackets here. And you can scroll down and you can see how many there are. You can also navigate the list through the up and down keys. When you find a function that you like, you can press the enter button. And if the list doesn't show for you, you can always use the shortcut of control and space when you're within the curly brackets to bring it back up. Go here and there. You can see it there. So some functions may require extra arguments, which are usually self-explanatory, like with words before needing a number or snippets.get needing a name. You can see in green here where these little bits are included. Okay. So let's try this out ourselves. Let's go into one of our novels, make a snippet. This is some test texted, and then I'm going to go just big squiggle so that it's easy to identify. If we go onto our prompts, our general purpose tests that we're doing, and I put here snippets get, and then in quotation marks, test. If we then go to writing a beat, general prose, general purpose test, and then look at the preview of the final prompt, you can see here, this has some test text in, and our snippet is brought up. Of course, for this instance, it's going to be absolutely worthless and probably change everything, but it shows that it is bringing up the snippet. We're going to go into way more detail in a later video, but I hope you enjoyed this basic primer on function calls and editing prompts, and it kind of whets your appetite to experiment with things. Join us in the Discord where there is a really wonderful community and everyone is sharing the prompts that they're making with Novelcrafter and what they do, and it's just a really good fun time. So yeah, I hope you have a good day and I'll see you soon. Bye.